Hi Henny, how are you? Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, I'm Teknikolour. The Sims 4's newest expansion pack, Adventure Awaits, released earlier this month, and I was inspired to build a retirement home using the pack's new Getaways feature with custom venues. But before we dive into the build, I post tons of Sims 4 builds here on YouTube, so if you enjoy this one, please be sure to like and subscribe. Also, if you're planning on grabbing any Sims packs, you can support me by using my creator code, Teknikolour, at checkout on the EA app. I receive a small commission from EA whenever my code is used at no extra cost to you, which helps me create content like this full-time, so I really appreciate it. Creating the shell of this build was quite an endeavor because I had a very basic idea of how I wanted it to look. Essentially, 3 big squares connected by 2 smaller rectangular spaces. I also wanted to use solely half-gabled roofs for the entire build, which not only made roofing this spectacularly easy, but also gave it a very specific look. Lastly, I decided to build this on the Seabreeze Scenic Lot in Gibbi Point's Jellyfish Junction neighborhood. This 40 by 30 lot felt like the right spot to build a retirement home in the newest world, and so I got to work. I had a general idea of what I wanted for each of the 3 main square spaces. I wanted bedrooms for the retirees in one, a bedroom and space for staff, and maybe more bedrooms for retirees in another, and the main living spaces, a kitchen, dining area, and living room in the center one. I had also taken inspiration for the exterior from a single-family build designed by The Ranch Mine, an architectural firm whose builds I've used as inspiration for Sims builds in the past. This build was inspired by their Lean 3 build in Colorado, and the previous build I'd done was inspired by their Red Rocks build in Arizona. That one I used as the home of my Generation 7 sim as part of my Around the World's Legacy Challenge. I'll drop the link in the description for the house tour video of that Del Sol Valley mansion if you're interested. The Lean 3 build mostly gave me inspiration for the shape and general look of the center square of the building, including some of the interior of that main space and the patio in the back. And of course, as soon as I strayed from the inspiration and tried to put my own spin on it, things became very complicated, especially the spectacularly easy roofing. I wanted some spots to have little balconies and some more visual interest, which didn't always work out. So you'll see my solution for more outdoor space later on in the video. That center space of the building, though, really intrigued me. I liked the windows and how the chimney was in the front, with 2 smaller chimneys or chimney-looking pieces in the back. Then, with the patio area being open to the back, and including those chimney pieces as an outdoor kitchen and fireplace. The whole look was so interesting to me, though I knew I would be straying from the modern-looking windows to the more rustic ones that come with Adventure Awaits for the rest of the building. This also started out with the intent of being a limited pack build, and I think that idea quickly spiraled the further I got into the process of building. I was even so hopeful that I'd be able to keep it limited when I added the eco-lifestyle windows, but by the time I finished my first build session for this, I knew that there was no way this was going to end up being a limited pack anymore. I'd originally wanted a sort of front patio space, but I knew it would be connected to the staff bedroom, and I felt like there should be some sort of separation between that and the entrance patio. I also intended to include a small back patio or balcony for 1 or 2 of the back bedrooms, but then I felt like it wasn't really fair to the front bedrooms to not have that luxury. Also, please don't be alarmed, I decided to hack away at certain parts of this speed build because I had it, again, worked on it kind of all at once and not in any type of logical order. So you might see some quick spoilers at some points, like the kitchen being mostly fully decorated before we really even get to that space. I'm also going to do a quick tour at the end of the video. I just didn't want you to get confused by the haphazard continuity throughout this build. With that said, I had decided to also take inspiration from the Lean 3 build's kitchen, I thought it was absolutely fabulous that there was this type of wraparound island and then included a kind of divider wall with counter cabinets on the other side. It felt like a nice separation between the kitchen and the rest of the house. And since I was building this as a retirement home, I wanted to lean into that idea. So since our kitchen cabinets and counter cabinets are all the same height, I had to think creatively. To achieve a similar look, I drew out a section of the floor that would act as the space for the retirees. This space would include that counter section, kind of like a breakfast nook, the living room, and then the dining table. I decided to drop that entire section down one using platforms. That way, it's not a major difference in step height for the elder Sims, even though, thankfully, I don't think falling and breaking a hip is a thing in the game. I did actually decide to add in a small staircase to the hallway leading to the bedrooms, so the bedroom walls aren't quite as tall as the rest of the medium height build. But by sinking in the living, dining, breakfast nook space, I was able to fake the height difference between the kitchen cabinets and the counter cabinets from the build inspiration. Actually, here I should also show some of the inspiration photos so you can get a sense of what I'm talking about. I really love the overall shape and design, including the roofs from the Lean 3 inspiration. I've only just realized why it's called Lean 3, and it makes a lot of sense to me now. I thought it was such a weird name until this exact moment. Anyways, I obviously love the kitchen and wanted to recreate some of that as well as the back patio. So here are those photos. Oh, and since I had decided to separate out the entrance from the staff patio area, I even toyed with the idea of having 2 separate staff bedrooms and therefore 2 patios. So I divided that up with a half wall. I think that this probably would have been better suited as patio spaces for each of the elders' bedrooms. But since I knew I wanted this specific space to be for staff, I eventually came to the conclusion that it would be just 1 bedroom and 1 patio here. Therefore, all the elders shared that back patio space instead of having their own little personal spaces. I think that this also sets them up for more interactions with each other rather than staying mostly off on their own. Sorry, fellow introverts. I spoke a little earlier about the layout of the main space and how I wanted there to be a sort of designation between spaces for the retirees and spaces for the staff while still keeping them all together. I think the solution that I came up with was to use platforms to create that sunken space for the living, dining, breakfast area for the retirees, and then keep the main cooking space of the kitchen for staff. Obviously, retirees still could use the kitchen to cook, bake, whatever. But typically the staff, using getaways, custom venues, would be in charge of general meals. I decided to include 2 ovens, 1 refrigerator, and 2 dishwashers in the staff space of the kitchen. This way, there'd be more than enough for staff and or elder Sims to use at the same time. Later on in the video, I also add in a bunch of countertop appliances like a microwave, waffle maker, etc. for them to enjoy. For the living room, I wanted to add in a fireplace, but I sometimes like to create faux fireplaces, so I did that again here. Your sim will not be able to turn them on or off, and they're more just for visual decoration rather than any standard fireplace object interactions. To do this, I essentially just add a room to act as the fireplace, and then I will add in items with flames, typically the flaming basketball from City Living's debug, and then use the tool mod to lower them into the ground. Then, I placed a wall-mounted TV right above a little window to see into the fireplace. Additionally, I added a few shelves next to each other right between the TV and fireplace window to act as a sort of ledge. For furniture, I decided on the new comfort objects from Adventure Awaits, so 2 couches and 2 armchairs. Then I added 2 coffee tables back to back to fill out the space just a bit more. From the same pack, I also put down a long dining table with chairs that match the couches. I have to say, this space is probably going to be really beautiful in terms of gameplay. Imagine your Sims having dinner at this table, or even just watching TV on the couches. You can see out these massive windows, and the views of Jellyfish Junction are just stunning. Plus, with the way the path is up to this lot, I think it will be really beautiful throughout the seasons, assuming you have seasons, that is. Not quite part of the main space, but transitioning in and out of it, I decided to use columns and spandrels to block off a sort of foyer space that leads into the kitchen and a hallway to what I'm calling the activity rooms and the staff bedroom. I added a real fireplace to this little hallway since it's right off the front door, and I assume it might get a bit chilly in the colder months. Plus, since the Elder's Wing is raised up on a platform and heat rises, they'll be nice and warmer on their side. Not that literally any of this actually matters that much in the game itself, but for immersive experiences, it obviously does to me. I'm also a really big fan of those little drop-off area objects. I think some people call them hall trees or whatever. Well, we received a new one in this pack, so it's a spot where you can store your things and hang up your coat or bag and sit down to put on your shoes. I had a mudroom growing up, and now living in an apartment, we don't really have one of these, but honestly, we should. I mentioned in my last video how we recently rearranged our bedroom, which doubles as my office, which is where you see me right now. This piece of furniture over here is actually a bench that we used to pile our pillows on top of when we'd unmake the bed to sleep. I wonder if we should move this into our little entrance space. Right now we have a kind of hall table with our printer, which barely ever works, and our tech stuff like the wireless router and all of that. But I wonder if we should replace it with this because we're a shoes off household. I don't know. Let me stop myself and get back to the video before I start going down a rabbit hole and spending money I don't really have. I actually ended up loving this little hallway that I made with the real fireplace. Just add in a small end table and some chairs, a bookcase, some lighting, and all of a sudden, it's now this nice little relaxing spot that's a bit removed from the main entertaining spaces. So maybe we have an elder or two who are a bit more introverted. They can spend some time here where it might be a little bit quieter, so they don't always have to retreat to their bedroom, you know? Am I the only one who puts this kind of thought into their builds? I also particularly love the little hall table with the mirror over it. I was very surprised to see this mirror included in the pack, and pleasantly so. I feel like we don't always get items like this, where they feel a little bit out of the ordinary. Another mirror that gives me the sort of same vibes is the one with the rope like border from Growing Together, which is another mirror that I love. Lighting also took me a minute to get right. I like how this space has the sconces on either side of the mirror, but it still felt rather dark, so I added in the new floor lamp, which I think is stunning. It's so themed, though, so I feel like I'll end up not using it quite as much as I want to, but it's really pretty. In the kitchen, I added some overhead lights above the breakfast nook and counters, and then I spent a little bit of time trying to find the perfect chandelier to put above the dining table. I feel like I tend to gravitate towards this one. I don't think I would particularly choose this one for my own home, but I feel like it's very versatile, and so I end up using it a lot in the game. I also found the little wall clock from the pack with the little arrows around the border. How adorable. I don't think I've ever made a build with a wall clock, or if I did, I wasn't a huge fan of how it looks. Either the ones we have are very dated looking or they just look low quality. I almost never put clocks in my build unless it's like a grandfather clock or something, but this one is honestly really nice, but again, very themed. Oh, I forgot I used it in this, but here's that mirror I was just talking about, the one from Growing Together. See, another one of my favorite items that I use all the time. Okay, be honest, are my builds getting stale? Because clearly I keep using the same items over and over again. I really might have to run with that idea for a build where I'm forced to use items I never use or something. Oh, I should mention this because I think I tend to use this item a fair amount in my builds, and you might be going crazy trying to find it. This family portrait frame is actually part of the pre-order bonus items from Life and Death. Another reason why I'm not the biggest fan of those get it now or lose it forever kind of items, even if they released some of these earlier pre-order bonus items again later as part of an in-game event, or even just reskins, I don't know, it makes me sad that someone can literally have just gotten into The Sims, like today, and have missed out on some really cool items like this one. Anyway, the family that you saw in the portrait is the family who were living here before I evicted them. I wanted their lot, okay? Normally it's empty if nobody owns the lot, or it'll populate when you have a household here. But now that I'm saying this, I have no idea how it will work for a custom venue. Like, will it populate with the Sims that are visiting as part of a getaway or whatever? Or will it be just the staff? Will it just be kept blank? Maybe I shouldn't have used it here. You probably caught a glimpse of this space when we put the pizza oven out here instead of leaving it in the kitchen, but let's build it from scratch right now. If you're outside and looking at this space, I knew I wanted there to be a little fireplace, like in the living room on the left side. Then, on the right, I wanted that brick room to house the outdoor kitchen. I almost thought about adding a bar here, even though in the end, I just added 2 cabinets instead. I also laid this out similarly to the inspiration photo I showed earlier. I like having a little sit-down spot to relax by the fire, but then another little kitchenette and dining space separated by those little hedge items. This entire patio is basically brought to you by the Perfect Patio Stuff Pack, come to think of it, and that wasn't really intentional. I knew I wanted to use the barbecue and cabinets, but I don't think I realized the rest of these were also from that pack. Well, it also uses the Casanova Cave Kit for the little coffee table, so at least there's that, I guess. These next 2 rooms are what I'm calling the activity spaces, mostly because I feel like I had to add more rooms and wasn't really sure what else to add. I didn't want more bedrooms, though you could easily renovate these to add them in if you prefer. Instead, I made a space for these Sims to work on pottery. And yes, I struggled with how to lay out this room. I don't really know why. I think I just felt like it was a much smaller room once I started to put all the different items in. But I think it's important for the Sims to have some sort of hobby room, and I think that pottery would be quite fun for them. The other room is simply a laundry room. Now, I know that laundry in The Sims can be interesting, but I felt like it just makes sense for these folks to have a communal laundry room here. I'll tell you what, this is like way bigger and nicer than the laundry room in my building. I also decided to decorate it with some cute storage sort of items and a bench, and then decided to fully rotate how the room was and had to rearrange everything. You want to know why? I thought it made more sense for that little butterfly vent item from Cottage Living to vent out into the outdoors rather than the pottery room. As if that item even works that way. It's not even functional, like at all. But if I hadn't, it'd always bother me. So here we are. I like how I literally start out working on the 1 staff bedroom by putting in some beds and then immediately change my mind and start adding windows to all the rooms that I've neglected up until now. I do come back here to start furnishing the staff bedroom though, promise. I really like the bunk beds for this room. I also added in dressers for the staff as well as some seating around. I also loved adding these little wall sconces above the head of each bed as a little reading light. I didn't check if this is a problem or not when the Sims need to go to sleep, so if they're refusing, you might need to remove these, but I just thought that they were so cute. I liked moving the dressers to the other wall by the door because I had an idea for a small entertainment area, which you'll see soon enough. But one issue that I have with some of the items from this game is that there's stickers and stuff on a few of the items. And there's no clean swatch without them. So it's up to you to hide those stickers like I did here with some clutter. Actually, I'm noticing now that one of the stickers is probably a moth or a butterfly, but it reminds me of the firefly symbol from The Last of Us Part 1 that I played a while back on my Twitch channel. I had set a goal to increase our public watch hours on this YouTube channel, where if we hit that, then we'd play through Part 2 on Twitch. But I don't think that's working out, so I might need to try something else. Probably more related to the content that I post here, so likely something closer to Sims building. Anyway, that might be a great time to mention that if you didn't know, I'm also a variety streamer over on Twitch. I also play a lot of The Sims 4, including early access and first looks at packs, thanks to me being in the EA Creator Network now. But I also play a bunch of other games. Right now, we've just started playing The Quarry, which has been thrilling so far, and also Strange Antiquities. Probably going to get back into Hades 2 and some Palia as well. Actually, I think our next main game might be Uncharted, which I've been looking forward to playing. But I play with my Legacy Challenge every Thursday morning, so if you're only interested in The Sims, I just thought I'd mention it. I think while I was working on lighting, we took a little segue to furnish this little outdoor entertaining space we haven't actually created just yet. I'm sorry. I tried rearranging the footage into something that felt a bit more logical flow-wise, and apparently I made some mistakes. Editing this video has been quite an experience, if you only knew. As for the bedrooms for the retirees, I wanted a smaller amount. This could be perfect for couples or singles, but I decided to give each room their own full bed instead of putting more than one single bed in a room. If you play with this, please feel free to modify it to your liking. Since I didn't have specific Sims in mind for these rooms, I mostly just freestyled when it came to decorating. All three rooms are fairly similar to each other, but also have their own personalities. Like, the front room eventually gets an upright piano, the middle a little sewing area, and the back room has cross-stitching. I knew that I had wanted to add in a little outdoor entertaining space, which you saw us furnish earlier. Sorry. So for that, I put down a little pathway leading up to that and the front door. Then I plopped a few trees down to make the lot feel less empty. The back is kind of close to the edge of the lot, but I wanted to add in more trees and stuff. Plus, I wanted to mess around with terrain again. So there's kind of a lot going on in the back. I probably could have built this on a larger lot and had the back patio kind of walk out onto a larger hill space that had been flattened to the same height. But there's a lot less room back here for that. I think it still looks pretty though. I originally intended to just mess with the terrain in the back of the lot, but I quickly decided to adjust terrain around the entire building, and I think it actually looks so much better this way. Then, I got to work building out the pathway and that outdoor entertaining space. I wasn't entirely sure what this would look like when I got to work on it. At first, I didn't think I'd even cover it, but it felt odd with the columns there. So once I added those in, I knew I'd have to make this a covered space. It's actually kind of comical, but after I put the columns and fencing and all of that, I had to replace it with walls to put on a ceiling and add curtains because it wasn't registering as a room. The curtains are also from this pack, and they're like the type that roll down, and I feel like you might not expect them in this sort of situation, but for this sort of tent, sort of not space, I think it totally works. After I put the walls up, I considered using the new canvas siding and windows, but it felt like it'd be out of place. I like it being open, and it feels almost more temporary this way. You could easily remove this and put something else there if you'd prefer to. The landscaping itself proved to be more difficult than I had expected because of the terrain manipulation. I think all of this landscaping is from the pack too. Maybe some of it is base game. I don't really remember, but I think I might have just used stuff from the pack, though I think it is all from debug. Because of the terrain manipulation, I had to do some elevation manipulation of my own using the tool mod so that things wouldn't be hovering above the ground, since it wasn't fully flat in all of the places where I had placed landscaping. A little terrain paint and it all comes together, doesn't it? But that is basically the entire speed build. So let's hop into the game so I can give you a little bit of a tour. So here we are in the game, and this is the Seabreeze retirement home. And I have to say, I love the way that this world looks, and the fact that this pathway just leads right up into the house, I think just looks really, really cute. As you can see, we have this outdoor little area here, and then you have the entrance, and then there is a little staff patio back here. And then in the back of the lot, there's the patio for all of the retirees. Here's a little overhead shot just to give you more of an idea of how this is all laid out. So you come in through the entrance, and again, there is this little hallway here, which leads to the staff bedroom, which they have their own bathroom. And then there is also the pottery room and then the laundry room over here. Then coming back out, you immediately come into the kitchen, and there is, of course, the space for staff to cook and retirees. But then I love that these counters are just a little bit lower down since we dropped it. And then you have the dining room over here, and you have the living room over here. Of course, you can see the fireplace here, although I'm not in live mode, so you don't actually see the fire right now. Then, of course, you have access to get into the back patio. And then over here is actually a room just for anyone to use. So this could be the retirees, staff, it could be visitors. So there's just a restroom for everyone. And then there's a little step up here. And then we have a bedroom over here in the front. We have a bedroom in the middle, and then we have a bedroom in the back. And each of these has their own bathroom. If you'd like to add this build to your game, you can grab it off the gallery using my EA ID, Teknikolour. If you enjoyed this build, please drop me a like. If you want to see more of my builds in the future, don't forget to subscribe too. If you want even more Sims content, consider dropping me a follow over on Twitch. I play my pack-based legacy challenge every Thursday. And thanks to the EA Creator Network, I'm able to check out new Sims releases and occasionally run giveaways. Planning on picking up Adventure Awaits or any other packs? Please consider using my creator code, Teknikolour, at checkout on the EA app. It's free for you and supports the channel. Plus, my code can now be used on so many other EA titles, not just The Sims. Oh, and until November 15th, if you use my code when purchasing an EA Play Pro annual subscription on the EA app, you'll receive a 16% discount. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video though. Bye-bye.